Body shot, ooh, that hurt, didn't it?
When the adrenaline starts pumping and you know what you can do with this right hand, it's hard to not do that.
Here are your hosts, Derick G and AJ.
What's going on, folks? Welcome back to another episode of the Bloody Water Podcast. UFC 276 was something. There was a lot of promise. And what I really think it was, aside from legendary domination in the terms of the ending of a rivalry between Alexander the Great Volkanovski and Max Holloway, there were a lot of prospects / contenders on that cusp of the top 15 breaking their way through, kicking the door down. And then there were some snooze fest. Then there was some high-level bouts that were at least promised to be exciting that I think under-delivered a little bit. Amazing walkouts. In-cage performance, I think we can beg to differ a little bit, just in terms of the entertainment value. But there's a lot to talk about here. We have some new title narratives. We have some new contenders, like I said, and a whole lot to talk about. Let me bring in my co-host, the New Mexico native, the Santa Fe bomber, AJ, brother. What's happening, my man? UFC 276 was something. It was a packed-out show here at T-Mobile Arena. Cowboy, Donald Cerrone, brother. I mean, listen, I feel like this is the most apt thing to start with. He gets retired. I want to say he retired, but he gets retired by Jim A10 Miller. When you start losing rematches that you were conquering many moons ago, when you find yourself on a 7-fight losing skid, when your last win was in like 2016, 2017, brother, maybe 2019, maybe, I don't know. There's problems. Donald Cerrone, happy retirement to you, man. You cannot forget what a legend, what a staple of the sport he is. How are you doing, brother? And how do you react to this Donald Cerrone retirement news?
I'm doing well, brother. I'm doing well. It was a great night of fights, and the Donald Cerrone retirement, man, caught me off guard at first when Jim Miller was standing there next to Joe when he turns and he points to Cowboy. I was like, oh shit, is this really going down? Cowboy, man, a storied, a legendary career. And I'm kind of glad to see the retirement finally come, because you're right. When you're on that kind of a skid, Derick, things are going down. You're losing to old opponents that used to handle. It hurts the fan to see. You know what I'm saying? So it's a bittersweet retirement for Cowboy. Happy to see it done. I know he has a bunch of other engagements going on. So there's monetary on the outside, and like you said, he doesn't love it anymore. That's the worst. You can't force somebody to step in there when they don't love it. You hate to see it. So I'm glad. I'm glad for the retirement, man. Happy retirement. It's, like I said, a storied career. Can't really ask for much more than the career Cowboy has had, especially in the fight game.
And I do think that this was more or less mutually beneficial. And what I mean by that is the UFC, Donald Cerrone didn't put the UFC in a position where they were forced to cut him. And I think that inevitably you lose enough times, years in a row, the company has to do what the company has to do, but don't put the company in that position. Instead, walk away on your own terms. So on one hand, AJ, Cowboy walks away and says, I chose to end the career. I want to be the movie star. On the other hand, the UFC says, "Oh, thank you for not making us look terrible." You know what I'm saying? And having to throw you to the wolves. Give you the boot. Excuse me. But basically, that's where we're at. Cowboy Cerrone, he retires, man. And like I've been saying over the course of the last couple of months, with every single event that we get, one of the old dogs does end up getting sent out to pasture. And I don't mean that in a terrible way. I mean that in the sense of the new generation is here, brother. And they're here on the Conor McGregor hype, not to take Bart, but to take over. You know what I'm saying? Look at Alex Paeta. Look at Mateusz Gamrot, Armis Sarukian. All these types of guys. But AJ, let's react really quickly to Jim Miller actually notching the all-time wins record thus far. You never know. Matt Brown or Andrei Arlovsky, one of those cats might come out the grave, you know what I'm saying? Be like, no, I'm still here to compete with it. But for now, A10 Jim Miller, he has the crown. What do you make of it? I think 24 UFC victories under his belt.
Man, insane record, and so undervalued by the casual fans that are out there. I was watching it at the old B-dubs, man, the reliable spot, that's man, right. Over there. And people literally had zero idea who A10 Jim Miller was. My mind was blown. I was excited. I was telling the whole table about it. They did, and luckily the people I was with, my family and friends and all that stuff, they're not as in depth as we are. But I could look around and I could see people literally snoozing it, looking at their phone, no idea who Jim Miller is. And it's mind blowing, man. Mind blowing that greatness like that cannot be valued. But for the ones that do know, you get to watch something special, man, because even Jim Miller in his last fight before this one was saying he's trying to make it to UFC 300. He keeps that up. We're 24 fights away, 24 pay-per-view cards away. maybe a year or so. Who knows, man? This dude, he can have a lot of wins, a lot of records on the belt, and hopefully start getting that recognition he deserves.
Bro, Jim Miller's going to get that done. He'll be the only fighter to have fought on UFC 100, 200, and 300. And at this pace, man, I mean, he'll be fighting for the next 10 years, you know what I'm saying? But Jim Miller, an impressive stat that he rattled off, brother. He is now tied for second most finishes in the UFC with 16, brother. So this is what I'm saying. You're literally approaching the most unheralded, because like you said, there's a lot of people who, the casuals today, right, the newer generation, they don't really know of Jim Miller like that. So we're reaching this unheralded status. You went from being the heralded guy to unheralded, and now possibly a UFC all-time great. You know, I'm not saying he's the best ever, but in terms of names, you have to throw him in there in contention with some of the best to ever lace him up. You know what I mean? Put the gloves on. But brother, we have one more retirement announcement that we need to talk about. Jessica Evil Eye gets put to pasture, man. She gets sent to retirement by the hands of the future, Macy Barber, man. So this is another example of the new, right, taking out the old. However, this is once again the realization Jessica I had that said, I've been in the game since 2009. Interesting take. She said that I have basically spent my whole life here, and I'm guessing in the West Coast America area, Las Vegas area, competing, fighting. I would like to see what the rest of the world looks like. And I was like, being that mixed martial arts is uniquely an international sport, where before COVID, I mean, you traveled everywhere. I thought that was a little bit of an interesting thing for her to say. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I didn't quite get it when she said it. I was a little confused too, because I'm sure she's fought. I'm sure we can pull it up. She's fought in many cards, especially since 2009, and doing the shows that they're doing, man. They're traveling a lot. So maybe, just she's talking about training, and maybe when you're in the fight game, you're not really spending the money after the camp. You know what I'm saying? Like you do your fight, you go home. Not many people actually sit there and enjoy the trial or the travels that they're being put out to. But yeah, another one, Jessica, another storied career that still feels not as appreciated as it should be. So I do hope she gets a recognition again she deserves, because man, you want to talk about someone who's fought the who's who of all the mixed the women's martial arts. Jessica I is in one of the few, like 2 top 3, 4 that have fought literally everybody. Kat Zingano, like you can go down the list. I'm not gonna do it because it's gonna take forever, but she has a storied career going back all the way to 2009, man. Very impressive for her.
Yeah, brother, and I'm guessing that she's saying more like, I want to get out of America, because she has fought in like Houston, Ohio, in events and places like that. I was just looking it up on Tapology. So yeah, man, interesting take, but you do have to give respect to a legend of the game, somebody who worked their way up high enough to be able to earn a coveted title shot against none other than Valentina Shevchenko. Yeah, you got your head knocked off your shoulders, but that's neither here nor there. The point is it takes a different type of specimen, a different type of athlete to be able to make it to title contention, man. That's important. But enough of the news that we needed to recap right there, AJ. I think it's time to talk about how we did this weekend at UFC 276. Now, clearly, we are a reliable wagering source here. This program here is based off of wagering. We're based off of over-unders, money lines, prop bets, but we're also banked on just more or less having the good picks, brother, doing the research and doing the good work, brother. So let's talk about the bet recap. Let's get into it. All right, brother. So let me pull up a couple of things right here, my man, and it'll go to show where we're at. Now let's start off, man. The betting sheet, 3-1 with 1 no contest on the night. I took the week right here, brother. 1-3, 1 no contest for you. So it looks like we're on opposite sides here. So what this goes to tell me here, AJ, is once again, short-term memory is very important, right? You can come off of a stunning week, a stunning couple of weeks back to back, but if you're not constantly on it, then you're going to find yourself in a world of trouble, right? Sometimes, especially with these big pay-per-view bouts, this is the thing that I find the most often. You have the big pay-per-view bout, the big names, and it can be very difficult to wager with your brain as opposed to with your heart, right? We have the emotional connection. We've been watching these people for years and years and years, and I think case in point here, AJ, Max Holloway. So let's talk about it, brother. Max Holloway, 50-45. Now, we're clearly going to break it down in a second, but got 50-45, brother. Nobody really saw this coming. We thought it was going to be very close, or basically a continuation of the second fight. But when we look at the and stills, that's what we have, brother. And still Israel Adesanya. And still Alexander Volkanovski. Now, I'm not going to lie. The Strickland bet, now looking back, hindsight, probably terrible, simply because Sean Strickland did what Israel Adesanya told him to do, which was fight with his ego, which led him to getting knocked out. Wanting to kickbox a world-class kickboxer, never really the smartest idea. And then we had the Sean O'Malley no contest, brother. In between there, we had Bryan Barberena versus Robbie Lawler, which I cannot sit here and lie to you, AJ. I was a little nervous, brother, come the end of round 1 and the beginning of round 2. I'm like, AJ was onto something that I absolutely wasn't. Robbie Lawler, talk about a resurgence. If he could do this to Bam Bam, I mean, who else could he do it to? But Bam Bam does what he does best, and he brings the pain, brother. You know what I mean? He comes back in dominant fashion, and he gets the TKO victory over Robbie Lawler, brother. A beautiful thing. So, to recap, folks, 3-1 on the night. We're not counting that one no contest for the Sean O'Malley Pedro Munhoz eye poke. 1-3 for AJ. 2-2 on the prop bets for me. 1-3 for AJ. 2-2 on the over and unders. 1-3 for AJ. So I won the week. However, AJ's still winning the year. 80-42 is he. 78-44 am I. And it looks like, AJ, that we are both about 65% and up once again, man. So competition, it never ends. But you have to get it every single week. But let's lastly, man, I want you to break these down. The prop bets, my man. What are you seeing right here?
Ooh, the prop bets, Derick, man. Both of us hitting on those Adesanya by points. Kind of the style, especially against Jared Cannonier. He's a big, heavy, powerful guy. The finish was hard to see. Now, Volkanovski points. You hit on that one. Smart move, man. He outclassed Max Holloway. And yeah, I missed it on the Holloway TKO, but still, you know, you never know, especially when a guy's talking big game. Both of us, when we missed on the Strickland points, we thought we were looking for a master class. Homeboy ends up fighting with his ego, and we all see that big left hand doing work. And Pereira, man, he's a real deal. Now, Barberena, both of us missed on these prop bets too. You got the win on the actual fight, but Barberena on points and me on Lawler on points. Neither of us got that one, and we probably could have saw this one, a knockout coming from either of these guys, the way they were fighting toe to toe in a phone booth, man. And then obviously the Sean O'Malley points, the no contest doesn't go. But I mean, he was working his way towards there, so it could have been that way. But that's how the papers fold.
And then I think we're gonna have to talk about that a little bit more in a second, because the people on the internet, I think they beg to differ, and there's a lot of controversy here. A lot of people saying Sean O'Malley exposed, ooh, you know. But we'll talk about all that in a second, folks. That is your betting recap. So once again, this is your premier betting source. This is your premier wagering source. If you want to come to us, you're going to get the plays that you're going to need ultimately. And yeah, the majority of what we count here is on the main card, but do not forget, folks, we also give you tips, tricks, and little tidbits here about prelim bouts that you should be leaning heavily on. For an example, it was a very chalky card here, more or less, right? But we did talk about an AJ sleeper, Yulia Stoliarenko versus Jessica Rose Clark. Watch out for the armbar. This is the armbar queen. What happens? Rose Clark, she gets her arm snapped in a matter of like 30 seconds, something crazy. So we have the plays for you. I guess that's the key. Drop a like, subscribe, get us to 400 subscribers on YouTube. Hit up Free Thinkers Club and or Bloody Water Podcast on YouTube. You will find us. But the main source that you need to be hitting us up now on is the website, of course, bloodywaterpodcast.com, Instagram at Bloody Water Podcast, and on TikTok at Bloody Water Podcast, and also Twitter, Bloody Water Pod. Enough of these shenanigans, brother. Let's talk about the main card. Let's get it.
Have you seen that replay, buddy? Your head was bouncing around like a pinball machine.
Time for some main card breakdown,
Courtesy of your hosts, Derick G and AJ.
Israel Adesanya, plus 125 decision victory over Jared Cannonier, my man. This is very important here because this is another title defense for the last style bender, which is now putting him in a different category altogether, man. You have to start talking about Adesanya as one of the greats because look at what he's being criticized for now, AJ. It's not, robbery, close fight. No, it's, oh, well, that was boring. Oh, you had such a cool Undertaker entrance. You walked out with Cannonier's urns and then you stayed at distance and leg kicked him for 25 minutes. You know what I mean? Like, that's the critiques now. So it goes to show Adesanya's clearly doing something right. My question to you, was Jared Cannonier ever the right dance partner to ever make this thing competitive, to make this exciting? Or did Jared Cannonier need to do more to give the fans an exciting bout? I felt like as a title challenger, he had a pretty relaxed performance here at UFC 276. What do you think?
Pretty relaxed performance, but you kind of you kind of expected from Cannonier. He's not the dude. He's not the Paulo Costa that's just gonna rush in and just be a madman going in there. But what makes Cannonier so nice about that is he isn't going to do that. He's that patient fighter. He's going to see his points and act right. He's a very calculated opponent. And I mean, against another calculated opponent, does kind of make for not necessarily an exciting fight for the casual fans. I wouldn't say a boring fight though by any means, man. If you're in there, you're watching what's going down. There's a lot of chess matches and reads that are happening and things you can see if you're actually looking for them that do make it an entertaining match. And you can see how the chess match, the 3D chess match is being in front of us played out. But at the end of the day, I don't really think Jared Cannonier was the best opponent for an exciting slobber knocker of a fight, and if that's what the fans were looking for on this one, you could have just jumped, you could have turned it off in the beginning because that's not going to happen, especially with Israel Adesanya. If he does have a dude in there, a Marauder's it's going to be a quick night.
Well, one thing that I thought was really interesting is I was reading on Twitter people saying that Israel Adesanya came into the UFC, right? He had a couple of good fights, and then he fought Kelvin Gastelum and had that back-and-forth 5-round war. And people are saying that's what bamboozled the fans into thinking this is how Israel Adesanya fought. But clearly, he is Anderson Silva-esque. He's less risk-taking than Anderson Silva, but he is very defensively sound. He is very dominant in terms of he controlled the footwork the entire fight, man. I mean, he controlled where the fight was taking place. He corralled Cannonier. He made Cannonier frustrated, made Cannonier decide, I have to clinch you up so I can get you close because it's so hard to get my hands on you. But AJ, this is actually something that Robert Whitaker had noted in the pre-fight prediction. He had said, it's really difficult to get your hands on Adesanya. And Whitaker, he's like, I think that I'm probably one of the best in the world, one of the best people in the world to get my hands on somebody. It's damn tough to get your hands on Adesanya. I don't think Cannonier can do it given how he fights currently. He's going to have to be a different guy, but he wasn't that different guy. So once again, man, let me just ask you, because you're saying, yeah, it was a relaxed performance. This is your one title shot. You're 38 years old. I feel like even though the flack is on Adesanya, Cannonier should have done some. You had to make it dirty. You had to give it everything you got. I just wonder, in your eyes, do you think it is so much more of a chess match in there? It's so much more difficult than what our eyes perceived from, sitting there in the bleachers and whatnot that Cannonier had to face, man, because the output wasn't great. The tenacity, I guess you should say, wasn't great. What do you think?
I think it's 10 times harder than anything we've ever thought about doing. You know what I'm saying? Like having that many lights on you, the pressure, and the champ, the style bender against you. And the first leg kick you throw, he checks it while still staring at your eyes, not even looking down at the kick. This dude, man, like the level of greatness that Israel Adesanya presents for his opponents is levels above anything they've seen before, and it's staggering, man. If you've ever met somebody who's a couple steps ahead of you in a sparring match or in a fight or in a game of any sort, it's kind of debilitating, man. You kind of sit back and wonder what's going down, and you resort to your classic inherent style of fighting, in which Jared Cannonier is not that dude who's going to push you up against a cage and just brawl you to the death, which would make an exciting fight against Adesanya, who is that counter striker and that sniper. So I just think it's the blame, sure, the blame, you can blame whoever you want on this one, but it doesn't really belong to either parties, if that makes sense. Like if you look at the style of fights that was going down, this is pretty, on par for what it should be.
No, you're absolutely right, man. And I think at this point we're looking at title defense number 5 for Israel Adesanya. So like I said, you're entering rare air to a degree. But the question now is, was this ever really the Cannonier Israel Adesanya show, or was it placeholder? Adesanya get a win, and this is the Alex Paeta show. Because, listen, obviously we're going to talk about that fight in a second. Clearly, now we have it lined up. The UFC has their dream narrative. They brought this dude in, said, oh, you knocked out Izzy, fresh blood in the middleweight division, skyrockets to top 5, KO Strickland, and now Adesanya says, Joe Rogan asked him a question, he just snatches the mic, and he's like, listen, we already know who's next. It's that dude, it's Paeta, X, Y, and Z. It's going to be an interesting build-up, man, and I don't know. I just don't know, man, how this is going to translate, because Israel Adesanya clearly is a world-class kickboxer, but when he got knocked out by a world-class kickboxer, even though it was competitive, he did have Paeta hurt multiple times. It was a back-and-forth affair. I just think that if you continue to just kickbox this dude, Paeta, man, it's going to have everybody in the world to hurt. Use mixed martial arts. It's literally the point. This is your advantage. It's a mixed martial arts. Nonetheless, AJ, this was a pretty sound performance by Israel Adesanya, man. There's nothing that I could take away that says, oh, man, this was a rough performance. He cited it as an off night. I just thought, as a counter striker, you need your opponent to engage. So when your opponent doesn't engage, it can be a boring fight. And it's as easy as that. You have anything else to put on this one?
No, man, that's the one. Is if your opponent, this is kind of Yoel Romero style of the fight, where everybody said it was a boring fight, but it was much more of a calculated chess match that you're watching. And if you're a counter striker and you're engaging to get the guy to come in engaged to you, but he doesn't, it just makes for a rough time. So great fight all around. The pressure, yeah, sure. There's a lot of things going into this one, but it was a good fight nonetheless for Adesanya. And when you have people picking apart little things like that, that's how you know you're great in the game, man.
Yeah.
Where they're like, oh, it was a boring fight, blah, 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 like that. That's what you get mad about? Like, okay, we're cool.
Yeah. I mean, look at it. We both hit on that plus 125 decision prop. So Adesanya, I think at close was like minus 500. So clearly you made some money at that plus money right there on the decision prop. You're welcome for that one, folks. Now let's talk about Alexander Volkanovski, brother. What a performance, my man. Alexander the Great put it on Max Holloway for 5 rounds. And it was said best, I think, by Daniel Cormier, man. He had said that Max Holloway, the closest he came to winning a round was in round 1, and it was all downhill from there. So this is ironic because this is Alexander Volkanovski, who looked sharper than ever, faster than ever, quicker than ever, 2 steps ahead. He was actually talking shit in the cage, man. That's not what Volk does. So he's over there sitting talking. You know this was a real legacy fight for him. He says, I am not going to lose this fight. I'm going to show the world why I am the champion. Because, once again, you come in, you get booed, man. What do you have to do to get the fans on your side? You get booed by the crowd. Holloway, they look at him as the people's champion. But, brother, I mean, this is Calvin Kattar, Max Holloway-esque. This is that level of a beatdown. So before we talk about the greatness of Alexander Volkanovski, which is, we can do that all day, where do we go with Max Holloway? Because I still am in firm agreement that Holloway beats anybody else in the division, just not Volkanovski. So what do you think?
Holloway beats everybody in the division. And Volkanovski, I mean, if he goes up to 155, we need a new champ, don't we? So, I mean, who are they going to put in for that scrap? Oh, man, and it's rough too because Holloway, one of my favorite fighters. Obviously, I was picking for him. This was a rough rough loss for me to see because Volkanovski absolutely handled the fight. Not even just Max Holloway, but the fight in general. Everything, press, media, like whatever the case is, Volkanovski did his job. But for Max Holloway, where do we go? I think he has to be in that contender talk. I mean, he is the people's champ, solidified now as number 2. Back to that, you know, there's a lot of fighters who get solidified as the second best in the division. But if the number 1 dog leaves, who else is going to step in and fill, you know, the shoes? So I think that's where this goes. I guess it all depends on what Volkanovski wants to do, but that's a weird situation, isn't it? Like my career is in the hands of what the guy that I've lost 3 to. If he stays in, then what am I doing here? Do I shuffle it up? Do I move? Do I do this? So he's kind of in this weird limbo position. We'll see, I guess.
Well, I feel like this is even weirder than the Colby Covington situation, who's clearly number 2 in the welterweight division. It's Kamaru Usman, Colby Covington, then everybody else. This one is Volkanovski, Holloway, then everyone else. But before Volkanovski, it was Holloway, then everyone else. So given you already put yourself in that heralded, I'm the real champion, I am the best to do it, I am basically going to be the next or better Jose Aldo, because remember, he beat Aldo twice. So look at how the world works, the circular nature of it, right? Max Holloway beats Jose Aldo twice. He becomes the best featherweight. Nobody can touch him. Volkanovski comes in, beats Holloway 3 times, brother. I mean, that's really the key right there. So they both have 4 title defenses a pop, right? So that's very important. But in the overall GOAT status, you have 3 wins over Holloway. Holloway has no wins over Volkanovski and 2 wins over Jose Aldo. And if I'm not mistaken, brother, when we look at Alexander Volkanovski's record, and let me just pull it up real fast, brother. So when we look at Alexander Volkanovski's record, he also has that win over Jose Aldo, brother. So I'll zoom out a little bit. Yeah, look at that win. Jose Aldo, decision win back in 2019. So 3 wins over Holloway and a win over Jose Aldo. Now, here's the question. I'm going to ask you firmly right now. Is Alexander Volkanovski the second best featherweight in UFC existence?
In existence, he has to be, man. He has to be right there. It depends on how many title defenses he's going to have, but he's firmly on the way to being GOAT status in the featherweight division, man. This dude, he's the real deal. And a lot of people, I mean, they even in the Buffalo Wild Wings we were watching, and it was like, oh, this short dude's not going to do nothing, man. He's got no reach. He's got no reach. Man, this short dude, this Aussie coming in, or New Zealand, whatever he is, I think he's Australian coming in, man, he is a legit one of the greatest fighters. You can put him in there against a lot of people, even in 155 pounds, and he's gonna be a very, very scrappy, entertaining, wild fighter. And like you said, the more confident he grows, Derick, he was talking shit in the cage. We don't see that going down ever, but sure enough, adds in a couple folds to the game, man.
And listen, bro, I have to say that Alexander Volkanovski is very quick. I'm not saying after this fight, man. There's been a couple of fights now. I think really it was after the Bryan Ortega fight. he solidified in my heart, right? I was like, this is the guy. This is the guy who I really enjoy. This is the spirit animal. And the reason why I think it's very representative of what this program stands for, right? This is a dude who says after the fight, hey, don't let anybody, you know what I mean, put you down or whatever, man. Stand up for yourself, man. Everyone was talking all crazy to me. Nobody believed in me. But even on the walkout, he hear all the boos and he's looking in the camera. He's all like, you at home, I can hear you. In his head, he's conjuring up. He's literally David Goggins taking souls in his head while he's fighting Max Holloway. So I'm like, listen, all love for Max Holloway. We know we love this dude. This dude, we grew up watching this dude. This dude was a staple. He's still incredible. Like I said, he's beating everybody else. But Volkanovski, man, that's a real champion, a tried and true champion, a blue-collar worker. Everything that you want in a champion, that is Alexander Volkanovski. So lastly, AJ, before we get out of here, yes, he hit on that plus 100 decision prop. I thought that was easy call right there between either one. If someone was going to win, I think decision was going to be the best play. But how close were you being like, dang, that plus 350 TKO when you saw that eyebrow split for Holloway? I was like, oh, shit, man. He really could get him out of there. How did you think that he was on the verge?
Man, I honestly never thought it. I never thought.
Okay.
I thought Holloway was in the fight. I thought the cut might have made him fight a little bit better, but Volkanovski, man, levels to this game, and the crazy thing is Volk is still growing. Is what's scary about it, man. He's going to be a very dominant champ. Even if he moves up, he'll be very dominant wherever he goes.
Absolutely. And don't get me wrong, man. For Holloway, the concern never was that he would quit. It's that the doctors would stop it for him. You know, that was a nasty cut.
That's a little more, that was a little more realistic because that gash was big, man, and deep.
Exactly. So the last thing before we get out of here, AJ, you did mention if Alexander Volkanovski moves up to 155, we're going to need a new champion. But he clearly stated, he says, no, I want to keep both divisions busy. He says, I'm not busy enough. The featherweight, they can't keep me busy. So what I want to do is I want to fight at 155 and 145. And maybe, hopefully, he can, if he does that, man, he will surpass even Conor McGregor status right there. Because Conor, he never defended. You know, and he got the belt and he just kind of ran with it. Went up to 170, got the money, boxing. Holloway, brother. I mean, not Holloway. Volkanovski, brother. That's the guy. But this is the end of a beautiful rivalry, man. And I'm just excited to see who's next, man. So I'm guessing for featherweight, probably Yair next, right? One of those guys, somebody. Brian Ortega or Yair, one of those guys get the right?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say Yair because Ortega already got the shot. Who else is there? Yair, maybe.
But I think that's who's fighting next. It's the next big featherweight bout. It's Ortega versus Yair in a couple of weeks, man. So the winner of that arguably will get the title shot. Either way, man, it's something to think about. So while you take a look at that, AJ, I'll move on to the next bout. And this one right here, folks. And listen, I have to give credit where credit is due. A lot of people in the comments, especially over on the TikTok channel, man, a lot of people were saying, you guys are crazy. Sean Strickland, you really think he's going to beat this dude Pereira? Pereira's going to knock him out. It's not even going to be close. Then you had other people saying it will be a very close decision, but Pereira inevitably is going to edge it out. Now, while I thought that Sean Strickland, being a more versatile mixed martial artist, had an incredibly great shot at winning this fight, especially being that he opened as an underdog, all of my hope and optimism, AJ, went out of the window when I saw him literally just flat-footed prod in front of Alex Pereira for the whole time. I'm thinking, okay, level change, get him up against the cage, dirty box. You know what I'm saying? Like, put him in these positions to where he can utilize some of that wrestling and some of that grappling that he has, man, to make it such a much more intriguing fight. But instead, he used his ego, and this is the real problem at hand right here. Israel Adesanya, in the pre-fight presser, he said, I think Sean Strickland, if he wants to win, he needs to use his ego. And I think that's directly what led to his loss. He says, my ego is I fight with glory kickboxing champions all the time. This dude Pereira is no different. But did you forget this dude has a left hand of fucking dynamite? You know what I'm saying? So to just sit there, standing there, get faked off the jab, and then left hook, boom, it was almost the easiest night Alex Pereira could have ever imagined, ever could have dreamed of. What do you make of the game plan of Sean Strickland, man? Is Alex Pereira this good, or do you think that this win was like punctualized or punctuated, I guess I should say, by a terrible game plan by Sean Strickland?
I think it was a terrible game plan from Sean Strickland, man. Literally, if a novice striker of myself can go in there and say, stop pawing at the jab, stop reaching your blocks, stop every time Pereira would jab, you'd see Sean Strickland just go out there and parry it. And sure enough, what'd you see Pereira do, man? Fake the jab, come around the top with that bomb of a left hand. There's literally a YouTube video I watched right before, maybe before one of the show or one of these days leading up to the fight. And it was the sound of Pereira's left hand bomb. And sure enough, you just see him all the time, bam, cracking people with that left hand. How do you not know that this dude is going to come in, it must be a horrible game plan. You know, if you're not doing the research to know that you can't paw that hand, you got to keep that hand high because that left hook is coming. It's just, it has to be embarrassing for the coach, for the fighter. Like, it has to be one of those ones where everybody looks back and like, well, yeah, you don't reach for your punches like that. Like, what are you doing? Yeah.
The big key is that Sean Strickland immediately addressed it, which you have to give him credit for, man. He didn't run and hide. He said, no, listen, man, I had a good go, and now it's time to work my way up the ranking. So you got to love that from Sean Strickland, like a true blue-collar worker right there. That's why I got love for him regardless of all the antics, man. I'm like, this dude's just a hard worker. You got to love that. But he also did say, I tried to just stand and bang in front of a, world-class kickboxer. And I'm like, that's the problem right there, though. This is MMA. This is not kickboxing. You're literally saying, oh, you're that dude who's the best kickboxer right now. You're the double champ or whatever. Okay, that's fine. Now let me do exactly what you're good at. Like, that's the whole point of people saying, how do you beat Israel Adesanya? How do you beat Sean O'Malley? Well, they're really good at striking. Take them down. Nullify the grappling, or nullify the striking, and start the grappling and all that good stuff. Man, I don't know, man. This just, it frustrated me a little bit just because I was like, man, this broke my parlay, first off, right? And then second, I mean, I feel like we're not really seeing, aside from that Bruno Silva bout, we're not really seeing a big test on Alex Paeta. We need to see 3-round bangers. We need to see 3 rounds of mixture of grappling, mixture of striking, all of that good stuff. Put him in that adversity to see what he's made of. But now you get that instant shot at Israel Adesanya or AJ. Interesting. I don't have it pulled up. I don't have a graphic to show you. But I did see Khamzat Chimaev actually just called out Alex Paeta. He said he wants to fight him. And I think that would be interesting. So what if that's the new title eliminator, right? At middleweight, because Khamzat clearly is trying to make his stamp at welterweight right now to fight Usman. But if he says, all right, fuck it, I'll fight Chimaev. That's the big money fight. And then the winner gets the shot at Israel Adesanya. That could be interesting. What do you make of that?
That's a storyline right there, Derick. The Wolf meets Paeta, the Izzy Hunter, dude, man, that's gonna be a fight too. Because you're right, we haven't seen Paeta tested besides the Bruno Silva, which he was able to get past, but arguably Bruno Silva's not anywhere near a Khamzat level of grappler either. No, he's not the best grappler. He's really, really good, but still not the best that the division has to offer. But we just haven't seen Paeta be put in that situation. I want to know what he's like off his back. You know what I'm saying? Like, what is he going to do the second both shoulder blades hit the ground and now he actually has to scramble and work to get up? That's the real big question, because that stuff that stuff happens all the time in every other fight, except I guess when people are just trying to fight him with his ego. Like, there's a very clear game plan once you see, oh, dude, best kickboxer in the world. All right, like, you can't kick me when you're on your back, so let's go there. Like that, yeah. I'm excited to see that fight. I like the Khamzat fight a lot.
Absolutely, man. So, plus 135 TKO, Paeta, easy money right there. And folks, you have to do some of these things. When these are like 50-50 bouts where you're like, well, there's a path to victory for this dude, but the other dude has the nuclear option. Even though you throw money on Sean Strickland, which I did in my parlay, right? I even, I think I put a decision prop for Sean Strickland, because I'm thinking like, okay, brother, this is how he's going to get it done. You still have to hedge in these situations, and I throw a little bit of money on Paeta. So while I lost the Strickland bet, I did make it up with the Paeta TKO prop plus 135. Man, you just throw $5, $7 on it just in case, and that's what'll make up your money right there. But listen, man, this is a dude who I think he looks so menacing just because he doesn't speak English, right? So it's just like this mean Brazilian dude who's just like, everything he says, he has a deep voice too. Everything he says sounds mean and just like vicious. So a lot of people are thinking right now, he's going to get rid of Israel Adesanya. He's going to be the new champion, which blows my mind because this dude has all of 7 MMA fights. And you're doing this. That's the thing that blows my mind, is the inexperience. However, he does have the kickboxing, massive loads of experience. So big win by Alex Paeta. And back to the drawing board for Sean Strickland, but you have to commend a man who had number 4 next to his name fight in more or less unranked dude. Because Alex Paeta, he's 18 in the Topology rankings, but unranked in the UFC. He will be entering the top 5, though. We'll see what happens. Now, AJ, I have to say, I don't care the outcome of this fight. I thoroughly enjoyed this fight. And we got fight of the night honors right here. Robbie Lawler, Bryan Barberena, my man. You had Bam Bam versus Ruthless. And this is kind of the beauty of the situation, is that I told you in the intro, I was very concerned. Come round 1, I'm like, who is this Robbie Lawler guy? He fought Nick Diaz and he just revitalized himself. He's coming out. He's just timing impeccable, man. He's throwing over the top, right? He's just swaying, parrying, doing all that. And instead of just sitting there and shelling up the way that Alistair Overeem would tend to do, right? He would get in that turtle and just shell. Robbie Lawler said, I'm going to shell, I'm going to parry, and then I'm going to come back over the top with big strikes. I was like, oh, we haven't seen that recently, my man. What did you make of the performance? Win or loss, what did you make of the performance of Robbie Lawler? Like, I was impressed.
Exciting, impressed. There's a bunch of adjectives you could use, man. This one was invigorating to watch. Robbie Lawler, a ruthless Robbie Lawler, come back and look great. I mean, both fighters, man. As the fight was going, I was telling the whole table, I was like, this is fight of the night. Like, if this isn't fight of the night, we're going to be very lucky and excited to watch another scrap like this, because these dudes, man, you get two alpha males going in there just swinging, careless abandonment, man. This was a fun fight. Great performance from both sides. I mean, I lost the pick, but man, I love seeing Barberena win, man. Bam Bam, he's another unheralded great in the UFC that I'm excited to finally see. He's getting his comeuppance. He's finally getting what he deserves, which is always good when you're working that hard, man. But Robbie Lawler looking great, like you said, resurgence. He's coming in. He has moves. He has head movement. Everything. Man, very, very impressive. Unfortunately, he gets knocked out. So we'll see, how long he's going to be out for, the whole medical clearance and all that stuff's going to be. But even that, man, I'm excited to see Robbie Lawler's fight. If he comes back, 40-some years old, I forget how old he is exactly, but comes back looking like that, looking like he's learned a couple new things. The old dog's learned a couple new tricks. Always impressive and exciting as a fight fan to watch something like that happen. Like, you can continuously grow in your fight career. Always impressive. And Barberena, what can you say, man? This is a real deal, bro.
So Robbie Lawler, he's actually 40 years old on the dot, brother. So, I mean, you still have some time. If you're in the folds of the Matt Browns, you know what I mean, of the Glover Teixeiras and all those, you still got a little bit of time and looking as good as ever, training over there at Sanford MMA, which we'll talk about later. Is no longer Sanford MMA. They actually have a new name. But yeah, Bryan Barberena, this is a dude who, believe it or not, man, it was just a couple fights ago where he fought out his contract and he was like, well, the UFC wants to re-sign me. I'll keep fighting. But if they don't, I'm more than happy to retire and just work on my farm. And look at this dude, bro. Yes, you're fighting 40-year-olds, but at the same time, man, this is a former champion right here. This is Robbie Lawler. This is not just any 40-year-old. So for Bryan Barberena to cash in on that plus 350 TKO prop, I thought was pretty damn impressive, man, because I really did see him going to a decision. I didn't think either one would end up getting knocked out, even though when I first saw this, I was like, banger alert, someone's going to sleep. You just say those things, right? And in the comments I was getting on the TikTok channel, man, a lot of the people were, I don't know, these dudes got great chins, bro. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I mean, listen, someone ended up not going to sleep necessarily, but Robbie Lawler, bro, I think he just couldn't recover, man, from some of those like big elbows, man. It was like a big right hand over the top. And when you saw him flat-footed, just eating shots, it's just like, oh, man. It goes to show just how great of a competitor, of an iron will he has, because when his body didn't want to work anymore, it was his mind that was like, we're not giving up, bro. So shout out to Robbie Lawler. Looked fresh, looked sharp. Bryan Barberena, I mean, listen, he's on a little bit of a streak himself right there. And going to show that he is the big money fight, not the big money fight. He's the exciting fight. He's the dude you put on the pay-per-views. He's the dude who, if you want that war, last minute replacement, give it to Bryan Barberena. He will get the job done for you. Plus 350 TKO prop. You have to love it. We didn't hit on that. I thought points on that one, but if you were lucky enough to get the big prop right there, kudos to you. Now, AJ, we have to talk about one more fight here on the main card. And this was supposed to be the one that popped, the one that opened the show, the one that got this card off to a hot start. But I actually think this fight was indicative, and this actually laid out the energy for the rest of the card, AJ. And I'm talking about Pedro Munhoz versus Sean O'Malley, which ended in a no contest. And there's controversy, brother. And we have to talk about this in a couple of different ways. On one hand, the controversy behind a lot of people saying, ooh, the Sugar Show, he's been exposed. He lost that first round, even though Pedro Munhoz, he only threw leg kicks. It was like 16 leg kicks. No work with the hands. Sean O'Malley trying to be a sniper, which is ultimately his downfall, because when you're fighting a Pedro Munhoz, you will lose on volume if you just try to snipe him and he's just constantly picking away at you. But they're saying, we didn't really learn what we needed to. Sean O'Malley might not be the real deal. When you fight a Pedro Munhoz, you're supposed to just, listen, he's like 5 inches taller, 6-inch reach advantage. But then on the other hand, AJ, you do have an eye poke. And if you've ever been poked in the eye, that shit hurts and it's very uncomfortable. So I don't care who you are. Go get poked in the eye if you're talking shit. But a lot of people, and I'm not saying this, AJ, this is just what the people are saying. I'm just relaying the message. Don't shoot the messenger. They're just saying Pedro Munhoz may have took the easy way out, brother. He was getting a little frustrated. His game plan wasn't working. A lot of those leg kicks that he was throwing that people were counting at home, right, were getting checked. Sugar Show was doing a great job checking those kicks. And you got an opportunity, exit plan, and you took it. I don't know. What do you make of it?
On the first part, to address the first one, man, my mind was absolutely blown that I was seeing people, when they pull the stats up on the side in the corner of the screen, it's like 10-9 Munhoz, 10-9 Munhoz. I was like, what are you watching? Like, what? yeah, sure, Sean isn't going to go in there and just start fucking throwing ones and twos down the pipe with reckless abandonment. You know, he's not that kind of fighter. And if that's what you're expecting to watch, sure, you might think that Pedro Munhoz won that first round. But to me, all I saw was a calculated attack coming from Sean O'Malley. And anytime anything would come his way, boom, check it, spin, get out of the way. Whatever the case may be, I felt like Sean was still in firm control of that first round. And when I saw people posting stuff, I was like, I don't know. Maybe I'm biased. Derek, you're going to have to, tell me what you saw in that one. But for the second part, the Pedro Munhoz thing, when I saw that, and you're right. Eye poke, you get poked in the eye, but you got sweaty eye, you got sweaty hand, boom, poke in the eye, that shit hurts. And it will aggravate you for quite a while. But we saw the replay. And the replay made a little pause for concern when you see the eye just get touched, and then you see Sean's hand. I'm doing it right here. So it did start out a little low. He touches him, and then he goes like this, and hand pulls up. Maybe a little finger got in there and flicked up a little. You don't know. I don't know. But it didn't. It wasn't the most egregious eye poke we've seen. It wasn't the Leon Edwards, Bilal Muhammad eye poke. It wasn't anything near where everyone was like, "Oh shit, that was," he was a knuckle deep. He might have got a little bit in there, but did Pedro Munhoz take the easy way out? I don't think so, and I don't want to say so, but you heard him about 30 seconds into talking to that doctor saying, "I can't see out of my eye. I can't see out of my eye." You know what happens when you say you can't see out of your eye. Everybody knows. So, that's where I get a little, come on, Pedro.
Well, that was where I was firmly concerned right there. Because as soon as I heard him say that, I was like, oh, you're not supposed to say that, bro. Like, any competitor who wants to keep the fight going knows, do not say that you can't see, because they are obligated. It's not a choice. They're obligated. They have to be like, all right, bro, well, we have to stop the fight then. It is what it is, man. I'm going to bring this up really quickly, AJ. So just, pardon me while I get this one figured out. I thought I had pulled it up. But basically what I'm going to pull up is I actually have a picture of the eye poke. And let's see where we're at, brother. So hold it down for me, my man. Let me ask you, I guess, one more question while I'm pulling this up, my man. So regardless of the win or the lose, it was neither win or lose. There was no contest, right? Regardless of the controversy behind the eye poke, I really want to know, what did you learn from Pedro Munhoz, from Sean O'Malley in this bout? What did you learn?
Man, I think the one thing I learned, from watching the Pedro Munhoz attack on Sean O'Malley, you're going to have to be calculated on how you fight this guy. Sean's going to use his reach. He's going to use his length. He sees everything coming. So you're going to have to blitz in on this guy or do something to where you really put him in a corner or in a position in which he's not comfortable. Because if you're just striking at distance, throwing the leg kicks, throwing the long jabs out there, throwing all the stuff that Sean is seeing on a daily basis, it's just another day at the park for this dude. So you have to get in on those single legs, get in, anywhere that isn't a striking, calculated kickboxing match. Because Sean, man, he sees things coming, and you can see him set moves up like 3 or 4 punches before, and then you'll see him use that combo again, and then a couple more punches happen, and then you see him use a combo again. He's very calculated, sets things up. That's why I liked him. And for Pedro Munhoz, what I learned from him, man, is this dude, even though sure the fight, we'll see what you're gonna pull up here in a second, but he's still a dog nonetheless.
Yeah. No, you're right about that. So here we go, brother. Thank you for holding it down, my man. This is the picture. Folks. So I mean, you tell us, and I'll even blow it up all the way to the top. Like I'll literally blow it up as far as it will allow me to go. Boom. Yes, that ring finger of Sean O'Malley, if you're really looking, it does hit the eyeball. But the problem that we have here ultimately is that this is what the fans are concerned about, AJ. So I'm going to pull it down for a second. This is what the fans are concerned about. They're saying, well, I'm just saying, I've seen fighters with a knuckle deep in their eye still continue the fight. That's the point they're making. They're not saying he didn't get eye poked. They're just saying, you could have continued. Now, would it have been your best interest, being that you've lost, 2 or 3 in a row? I think 2 in a row, right? Is it in your best interest to continue? No, you did the smart thing. You said, I'm going to take the no contest. I'm going to keep it pushing in an unadvantageous fight, in a fight where maybe things weren't necessarily going my way. I saw, because Sugar Show he was starting to put it on in that second round. He was starting to sit down on his punches more, throw a little more volume. So, I mean, that's it right there, man. I'm not saying that the eye poke didn't happen, but the egregious nature of it, it wasn't something like absolutely inexplicit or something like that. I think Pedro Munhoz was also reaching a little bit because he was trying to say, oh, that was 2 back-to-back, bro. I think he really wanted to get Sean O'Malley DQ'd, and he did not want a no contest here. So, final thoughts, brother.
Yeah, I mean, there's been worse. There's been worse. And the really, I mean, whether you get eye poked or not, if somebody gets eye poked, it hurts. And your vision's blurry, and you're in there with a sniper who's going to head kick you from that direction. Good call. Don't fight. It's all good. Don't worry about it. But what made me feel a little type of a way was that first 30 seconds. The second the doctor walks in, he's like, I can't see out of my right eye. I can't see out of my eye. Like, I can't do it. It's like, bro, like, you got 5 minutes. Like, just come on. Like, at least, play it off a little bit. I get it. Even if you need to catch your breath, just say, oh no, hold on. Let me clean it a little bit more. Like, do something. But yeah, rough way to start off the main card for sure.
Absolutely, man. And then lastly, there was one part where he was saying, hey, all I can see is black. All I can see is black. But while he was saying that, his eye was closed. So I was like, well, your eyes closed, bro. So, I mean, maybe open it, and then maybe you could see a little something. I don't know. I'm just tips, just suggestions. Don't shoot the messenger once again. But lastly, folks, once you hear eye poke and then you hear I'm going to get a wet towel, and I'm going to let you, once you start hearing that, cause for concern. Because Cannonier, that happened in the Cannonier Israel Adesanya fight too. And I was like, oh my God, is this about to happen again? Like literally another no contest for real. But this one was a wash, man. So if you placed any wagers on this, folks, any prop bets, any, whatever the case may be, that one did get null and void, money sent back to you because it ended in a no contest. But had it gone a little bit longer, I think they would have gone to the judges. But either way, that was your main card, man. So I do think that fight set the trajectory of how the rest of the card went. Was it worth $80, $70? No, not in my opinion. It was not. The best performance on there, honestly, was the Barberena Lawler fight, and then the Paeta knockout, which lasted all of like what? So you had 15 minutes plus like 2 minutes. 17 minutes. That's what you paid for. 17 minutes of non-stock action. You did see Volkanovski put on a hell of a performance, all that good stuff, but what's more important, I think, to talk about is just a couple of these prelim fights, AJ. So let's just break it down real fast, my man. And actually, let's break it down real fast. All right, AJ, so check it out. We were talking about it. I don't know if we even mentioned it in the intro, if we were talking about it when the mics were cold, but Jalin the Tarantula Turner is a bad man, bro. I mean, he just did to Brad Riddell what nobody does to Brad Riddell. He just did something that has solidified him as he's an animal. He's a beast, bro. He is literally the next guy. He is a monster at 155 pounds. Dude's like 6'3", has like a ridiculous reach over all of his opponents, and he just submitted Brad Riddell in the span of literally 45 seconds, bro. He guillotined him after hurting him with the big right hand, which is ironic because the commentators were noting, they're all like, you know what Jalin Turner needs to do? He needs to get some respect on Brad Riddell. What does he do? Cracks him with the right hand. Riddell shoots, and then he just gets guillotined. Easy money right there, man. So he can knock you out. He could submit you. He has a ridiculous amount of first-round finishes or early second-round finishes. This dude, Jalin Turner, man, in the lightweight division could make some real waves. What are your thoughts?
Derick, that might have been the most underrated statement you said, that Jalin Turner's a bad man.
Yeah.
Who else does that to Brad Riddell? It took Rafael Fiziev, one of the most heralded strikers in this division. It took him 3 rounds, a total of like 12 minutes, where it took Jalin Turner 45 seconds to get some quote-unquote respect on Brad Riddell. Because, dude, this dude's the real deal, man. I texted you right off the jump when I saw it. I was like, Jalin Turner is the real deal. 6'3" with the reach and the know-how. The second he goes, the second I hurt this dude, he's going to shoot in, and I'm just going to easy snatch up a neck real quick, because that's what Brad Riddell does. He's that kind of fighter. He's way better at his wrestling and comfortable doing that kind of thing. So what happens when you hurt somebody? They resort to their lowest level of training. Sure enough, usually leave some mistakes open because they're still a little phased. And I guarantee, you might not admit to it, but I guarantee Brad Riddell was underestimating Jalin Turner's ground game or submission game. So he's like, I can shoot in, I'm fine. I don't need to worry about anything, because that's how you get guillotined. Most people know how to avoid the guillotine, and if you're as practiced and as proficient as Brad Riddell is, you know how to avoid the guillotine. But when you get cracked by a dude who's basically 3 feet away from you, and you're still trying to arms out, head in, going in, it's hard, man. It's Jalin Turner is going to be a problem to deal with in the 155-pound division for whoever faces him next. I'm excited to see the next matchup too, man.
Absolutely, bro. And when you're looking at it, you just look at the names he's beaten. These are unheralded names. Once again, man, these are for the casuals. They might not know these dudes, but Brad Riddell, Jamie Malaki, come on, brother. Uros Medic. I was there for that one. That one was like the start of this submission tear that he's been on. Josh Kulabau. You look at, he does have a loss to Matt Favola, which is very interesting, right? But look at that, man. How many fights have gone the distance That loss to Matt Frevola is literally the only fight that he's gone all 3 rounds. Other than that, everything is first round, second round. His only career losses are to Matt Frevola, which is very impressive once again, by the steamroller, and Vicente Luque, brother, his second fight in the big show. So this is just what I'm saying. Jamie Malarkey, it took him a little second to get going, but at this point, man, he's on what, a 5-fight win streak. He all finishes in those 5 fights, man. Watch out for Jalin Turner, bro. He is a bad man. But we also had another pretty stunning performance, man. Ian Machado Garry, not Ian Garry, Ian Machado Garry, the Irishman who's married to a Brazilian. So it's the best of both worlds right there. You got the McGregor and then you got the, you know what I'm saying? But he got the huge win over Gabe Green, bro. And this was actually a fight that I thought Gabe Green could make an upset victory in. However, Machado, too long. Strikes were too precise, and he was just too much overall for Gabe Green. Gabe Green wasn't able to initiate that wrestling. Ian Garry, bro, perfect 10-0. He's looking sharp. Now, he didn't get the mic time that he wanted for Joe Rogan, because that's often his shtick, right? Is he wins the fight, then he talks a big game on the mic. But it was a fun fight overall, man. What'd you make of it?
It was a fun fight. I was actually hyping this fight up the whole night, man, and it delivered. If this is what you were looking for, yeah. But to the casuals, to the people at the table, man, this was a boring fight. They were asking like, "Wow, this is supposed to be exciting." I was like, "This is exciting. Yeah. This is what it is." Yeah. But you know, I also was with you. I thought Gabe Green had a good chance, just with the size of Ian Garry and the striking precision that he has right down the pipe. You can't get that wrestling going, man. All credit to Garry. That was a hell of a fight.
That was a tall task by Gabe Green, literally fighting a very tall opponent, in comparison. But you want to talk about an exciting fight, I think my sleeper delivered, brother. Dricus du Plessis versus Brad Tavares, the mean fight in Hawaiian. And this is a fight where I figured somebody had to go to sleep in this fight, just because the nature of the bombs of du Plessis, his striking repertoire, and Brad Tavares, a dude who can take damage but can also give it. That was the problem. That's why the finish didn't happen. This was literally du Plessis' first decision victory of his career against Brad Tavares, who he even gave props to. He was like, Brad Tavares is one of the toughest men out there. He's like, I hit this dude with everything. I hit him with everything but the kitchen sink, and this dude just would not fall. Just like Sean Strickland to Jack Martian. Why won't you fall, bro? Like, you're just punching him, bro. Like, what's going on here? Who are you more impressed by? Du Plessis, who was unranked now. I mean, Brad Tavares was number 14, so clearly Du Plessis is about to enter the top 15 of the middleweight rankings. Who are you more impressed by? Him being able to just throw bombs from rounds 1 to round 3, seemed exhausted the whole fight and never slow down, or Brad Tavares just being literally being the big version of Max Holloway, the 185 version of Max Holloway? What are you more impressed by?
Man, so I've always liked Brad Tavares. And that's a pretty apt description, the 185-pound Max Holloway, because he's looking good, man. And he's still growing in his fighting style as well. So I really like Brad Tavares, but honestly, man, I was way more impressed with du Plessis just because the amount of output you have in doing that, and you're 185 pounds, so you got all those muscles, all the lactic acid building, and you're just throwing bombs from buzzer to buzzer, man. This dude, it's a slobber knocker waiting to happen. If you put him in there with another buzzstorm, man, that's going to be a very, very exciting, thrilling fight. And I think if these guys do this again later on, we're going to see a fight of the night. This could be a hell of a scrap anytime you line up either of these fighters with another similar style.
Bro, if the Lawler Barberena fight didn't happen, that probably would have been fight of the night, like legitimately. That was one of the most exciting fights on the card. But then you go from that exciting one, and right before that, you had a wall-to-wall domination by Andre Muniz, man. This dude, you cannot, why are we hiding him on the prelims, I guess is my question. Maybe because his style is boring, because he's able to effectively use jiu-jitsu, use your Muay Thai to get close, use jiu-jitsu to take your back and control you for all 3 rounds. He came as close to submitting Uriah Hall as Uriah Hall has come to being submitted, man, in recent history. Uriah Hall did mention, he said, listen, this dude thinks he's going to submit me, good luck. And Andre Muniz, man, being that he snapped Jacare's arm, he's submitting everybody, and he couldn't submit Uriah Hall, that's props to Uriah Hall. But at the end of the day, you did get controlled for all 15 minutes, man. And to do that to Uriah Hall, this means either one of two things. This either means Andre Muniz is not just really good, but he's like really, really, really good. Like, get him ranked opponents immediately, or Uriah Hall is just, a step or two behind the old prime time that we knew him to be. What do you think is the case?
It is rough seeing Uriah Hall on these prelim cards fighting. And honestly, you would expect somebody down on this low to be fighting someone a little newer to the game. But Muniz, he's a real deal that's being slept on very highly or being slept on by a lot of people, which is crazy, dude, because you're right. And it's funny because a lot of the other grapplers out there, the submission specialists, all this stuff, they don't always get labeled as the boring fighters. It's usually the wrestlers who just lay on top that get labeled as the boring fighters. But for some reason, Muniz catches all that heat as that one who's just going to be a sleepy old submission specialist, which is crazy to me. And I think it's a little of both, to be honest. Uriah Hall, a little behind the 8 ball. Muniz, just, I mean, the style that he has to just sit there and control you, it's a recipe for not a lackluster fight, but a very low energy from the outside. You know what I'm saying? Like, it looks like it's low energy, but they're really doing a lot in there. So, yeah.
I think it's the problem is that Muniz, it takes some time to set up the submission, and that's the setup time is the problem people don't like. They like the finish, right? When he submitted Jacare, it was all cool. When he submitted Eric Anders, it was all cool and great. But when you do the setup and you go for the submission and it doesn't work, because often, bro, he had Uriah Hall in that setup for multiple arm bars, for rear naked chokes, for all of that stuff. And Uriah Hall, he was just able to get out of it, man. He's able to use his veteran savvy. So, listen, big win. And this is the bigger part right here. If you wanted, because he was such a massive favorite, if you wanted to make money, you couldn't necessarily do it on a submission prop. He was minus money to win by submission, plus 500 for a decision win by Muniz, though, brother. So, like, if you cashed in on that, man, those smart Andre Muniz bettors, that's where the money was at. And then I guess we'll just finish off with these last 2 bouts, man. Jessica Ai, she loses to Macy Barber. For whatever reason, she felt like the path to victory was to clinch and to try to wrestle with Barber, who that's basically her A game. So she got elbowed into oblivion, got massive hematoma over her eyebrow. This is just a smart game plan by Macy Barber, doing the right things, man, getting back to her basics. Now, is she that fighter that she came onto the scene as, that I'm going to knock out everybody, I'm going to get you in the clinch, I'm going to finish you? Apparently not. Apparently, once you start getting up against higher opposition, those, you're just not that fighter anymore. And that's okay as long as you keep winning. But what did you take most out of this? Yes, Jessica Ai, I mean, pretty rough streak for her, you know what I mean? Lost a bunch of fights, had to call it quits. She even said it herself. She was like, I left before they could, like, kick me out, you know what I mean? So I left on my terms. So smart. You got to love it by Jessica Ai. You got to love the transparency and the honesty. But my question is, what did you learn about Macy Barber in this fight?
Man, and this is going to sound weird, but the one thing I'm learning about Macy Barber, maybe not even just strictly Macy Barber, but it's so crazy that the one camp that is heralded as the knockout guys, they're in there sparring hard. Team Alpha Male, they're in there sparring hard 7 days a week. You know, you want to go in there, you want to get roughed up a little bit. Team Alpha Male is the place to go and get scrappy. You know, that's just what Macy Barber, she signed up for. So I'm going to go in there and get better at wrestling, better at clinch work, just start dropping bombs on people. And she's still not getting the knockouts. It's so interesting that they're working a lot more on her basic fundamental game, which is probably good. I mean, don't get me wrong. It's probably better for her career to be working like this sort of thing. But when I saw that Macy Barber was teaming up with Team Alpha Male, I was like, oh, we're going to see some fireworks. We're going to see like some bombs getting dropped on people, just crazy output, like crazy work ethic, and which is still there. The work ethic, the output, it's still there, but it's just a much more calculated and safe and Macy Barber style approach than when she walked in and she was talking about, I'm going to knock everyone out, blah, blah, blah. Like, it's a little better, if that makes sense. Like, it's a little better longevity-wise, long run, but you're not going to have that big rise to the top. You're not going to have that big pop. You're not going to have all the flash that she had when she walked in. So it's interesting. Like, her career is in a better place, but not really. Like, is it? Like, is it in the media and all this stuff? I don't know. What do you think?
Well, I think she's losing her steam to 2 fighters specifically. 3 fighters in total, really, because one of them she got a win over, but like, did she, right? Miranda Maverick, right? Who a little steam is coming off of her career too, but she's still so young, man. She still has so much promise. Casey O'Neill, who then called her out saying, hey, I gifted you that fight. Because remember, Jessica was supposed to fight Casey O'Neill, but Casey O'Neill tore her ACL, so, she's out. She said, I gifted you that fight. You earned the win. We need to fight next. I think I like that fight, right? And then the other person is Erin Blanchfield, who is actually available to fight. Casey O'Neill's not, but Erin Blanchfield is, and they're right next to each other on the rankings. So I think now Macy Barber, all that hype that she had is on the stagnation point, and now she's basically building up other people's careers because they're using her name to catapult themselves, right? So interesting flux for Macy Barber, and if she can get back to her finishing ways or just beat some... I mean, listen, you beat Jessica Ai, bro. I don't care. That's impressive. I don't care who you are. That's impressive, man. That's a ranked veteran. She's seen the best of the best. She's fought the best of the best, man. I mean, come on. So big win by Macy Barber, but yeah, interesting point in her career. I do agree with you. It's like she's like in a better spot, but like not really. But yeah, either way. Lastly, man, Yulia Stoliarenko arm bars Jessica Rose Clark, bro. It took all of like 45 seconds, maybe a couple minutes. You got to feel for Jessica Rose Clark in this one because you lose to Stephanie Edgar. So she was a betting favorite. You lose to Stephanie Edgar. She was a betting favorite against Stoliarenko. I think everybody thought that she was just going to come in and steamroll her. And it actually started off good, man. Started off on the feet, man. She put her in some compromising spots. But Stoliarenko hit her with the okie-doke. She said, oh, yeah, we're going to sit here and we're going to kickbox. We're going to do some Muay Thai. Yeah, just kidding. Blast double armbar immediately. Now, the controversy here comes, AJ, is that Jessica Rose Clark was a little offended because Stoliarenko did the thing that you have to do. If you actually go back to the early days and you look at Royce Gracie, he did this exact same thing. So back in the early days, man, you would tap your opponent, you would submit them, they would tap, and then you would let go. But the referee would be like, oh, I didn't see a tap, and the fight would continue, right? That's why they have the Brazilian tap. The Brazilians are known for the little ghost tap, right? Oh, no, I didn't tap, that wasn't me. And then the fight continues, right? However, what does Stoliarenko do? She says, yeah, I've had problems in jiu-jitsu with that stuff before, so now if the referee doesn't take me off, I'm going to break your arm. It's going to be as simple as that. If I get a submission, I'm going to break it. I don't care. So not the Paul Craig approach where you say snap, or you say, nap, tap, or it snaps, right? Not that approach. No mercy approach. You say, I'm just going to snap it regardless. What do you make of that? How do you feel about that? And I have my own thoughts being a jiu-jitsu practitioner myself. So what do you make?
I mean, it's in the fight game. All right. Fuck yeah. Like that's you know what it is. And I'm not gonna half knock you out. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm gonna full put my fist through your face. Same thing. If somebody gives me their arm, I'm taking that arm home with me. You know, there's a lot of things that can happen in that. If you just go, oh, this is enough. This is enough. They should tap with this. Fuck no, man. Take that arm home with you all day long. I see no problem in it. That's the rules you're setting up for. That's the thing. And if you don't want to get your arm snapped off, well, learn how to defend the armbar. I mean, especially fighting the armbar specialist. We even called it in the pre-show. This is literally what her game plan is. And I mean, I love Jessica Rose Clark as a fighter. Like she's exciting. You know, like you said, he walked in the fight. It was looking good for her. It was looking good on the feet until you get taken to the ground. So am I upset when a submission specialist gets a submission and taps you out or breaks your arm because that's the position and what an armbar is supposed to do in the real world and in an actual physical altercation? No. It's the same thing. I don't expect the knockout artist to half knock you out and take it easy, pitter patter you just because they're being nice, you know? Yeah, no, I agree with you. And that's kind of my thoughts too. So we actually have two philosophies, right? In jiu-jitsu, your philosophy is your training philosophy and your competition philosophy. Training philosophy, of course, you're not going to hurt your opponent, man. You're not going to really lean down on an armbar. They tap, you're letting go immediately. In competition, we all going in know I can come out of this injured. I can come out of this with a major injury if I'm not careful. In competition, my opponent does not care. What's more important is not my health, it is a victory, and we understand that. So that is why I'm just like, well, it's a competition. It's not a jiu-jitsu competition. This is a fight. You know what I mean? This is a bona fide fight. You can't sit there and because I don't know, it's tough. You can be a sportsman, right? Like sportsmanship, right? You could have that, but at the same time, this is not a sportsmanship type of game. This is martial artists, Bushido, all that good stuff. But like I said, I just think that in competition, I don't care if I tap or not. It's not until the ref pulls them off. And she could say, I don't know who was reffing that fight, but she could pull a Derick lose me. That's Herb Dean's fault. You know what I'm saying? He should have pulled me off or else she wouldn't have got fucked up like that. Either way, it wasn't a broken arm. However, it was like a dislocated elbow. So she's going to be out for a while. Jessica Rose Clark's going to be out for a while. This is a tough derailing to her career thus far, man, because she came back from major injury. I believe it was like a knee injury. Comes back, gets a nice little win, and then 2 losses back to back as a betting favorite. Where you lose, guess what? Betting the odds makers are not going to be as kind to you in the future. I will just say that, man. But Stoliarenko for a submission victory, believe it or not, man, plus 350, and she locked it down on that one, man. So that was pretty damn huge. So that was it. And I did want to mention that Macy Barber, when she beat Jessica, man, that was minus money, man. Minus 115 for a decision. Not for money line, for a decision. So impressive. Either way, those are your prelims. That's UFC 276. So while I personally do think that the prelims were a little more impactful, a little more exciting than the main card was, the ones that you watched for free was a little bit better product. Who would have known? Watch the prelims. We say it all the time. It was still an overall good card, man. And we're actually looking forward to another good event next week, man. I do believe it is the Fiziev versus RDA fight. Your boy RDA, you know what I'm saying? So that definitely should be a good one. But AJ, we've gone on long enough. Let's just knock out a couple of segments and we will get up out of here. So this next one, this ranking review, AJ, it's going to be quick. It's going to be to the point because we have a very simple question that we need to ask here.
AJ, we know who we need to talk about in the rankings today. There's only one person who really made more than a splash, man. This was a cannonball into the middleweight top 5, and his name is Alex Paeta. So clearly, we don't have him ranked, either of us, because he hadn't fought a ranked opponent yet. So I thought it was fair not to have him ranked. But now when we're looking at it, you have Israel Adesanya, Robert Whittaker, Marvin Vettori, Jared Cannonier, Derek Brunson, Sean Strickland. Those are your top 6 fighters in the division, right? So clearly, with that win over Sean Strickland, Alex Paeta is number 5. Out of Derek Brunson, Jared Cannonier, Marvin Vettori, or Robert Whittaker, can any of these dudes beat Alex Paeta right now to make the argument that he shouldn't get the next immediate crack at Israel Adesanya?
Derek, I give this man a lot of shit on this show consistently. Is probably one of the most picked on fighters I have. But I think Derek Brunson gets the win, man. Okay. The style he has a very high likelihood of getting knocked out. Don't get me wrong. Mm-hmm. But if he doesn't, if he's able to withstand that first, half round, I think Derek Brunson gets the dub, man. He puts it to him. He puts him on the ground, and then we really see how things go. I think that's a very intriguing fight. Now, Jared Cannonier, I think he gets knocked out. Marvin Vettori probably gets knocked out as well. Bobby Knuckles, that's another one where I think that's a hell of a scrap. Again, a very high likelihood of getting knocked out because Robert Whittaker does like to fight with his ego sometimes. But if not, and he can put the work to him, I think that's another one that's very intriguing. What do you think?
I think there's 2 guys that can give him problems before Adesanya, and one of them you said would get knocked out. So I'm a little offended. I'm just joking, but I do think that he would give him some problems. I think Marvin Vettori, man. I think Marvin Vettori is that dude with the chin and the durability to withstand the shots, to get on the inside and to just go full out wrestling for 5 rounds, man. We know he can do it. Yes, Derek Brunson can do it too. You know what I mean? But I think Marvin Vettori is just. I personally think take Derek Brunson and Marvin Vettori, and I don't know if they fought. I don't think they have fought before. Have they?
I can look it up. I don't think so either.
So if they haven't fought, I do think that Marvin Vettori would get the better of Derek Brunson in this matchup. But I do think Robert Whittaker is the other guy. And I think he could win it strategically, staying at, it'd be tough, man, just because it's like, say, a distance. This dude would be such at a reach and a height disadvantage here. But just racking up little points, doing the smart thing. But you're right, he probably could get knocked out too, man. So it's just, the point is where do we put him in the top 5? I guess is the ultimate question right here. Is he just number 5, or do you just straight up put him at number 1 or number 2 contender?
No, I to me, you put him at that number 5. I think that's the firm slot, just because of the level of work that these older fighters have put in. It's not 7 fights. You know what I'm saying? Like it's not 3 fights in the UFC or whatever the case is. So I think you have to put him at 5 just to respect the sport as a whole. But man, I mean, it's a lot. And to the point you were talking about before, Brunson and Vettori have not fought. So,
okay, so you already looked it up. Okay, nice. I didn't know if you looked it up or not, so I was about to. But yeah, boom, just like that. All right, well, there you go, man. And that is your rankings recap right there. I feel like I don't really got too much else to say, given that at the end of the day, listen, man, Paeta, he did what he needed to do, man. He didn't talk a bunch in the press conference. He just let his fist do the talking, and now he's in the top 5. Israel Adesanya, man, you're up next. But lastly, AJ, we have to give a fighter of the night. You know what time it is.
Right now, there is not a man in this planet that can stop me inside this octagon. Celebration is more work than the fight.
Fighter of the night. Now, AJ, I would never put you in a position where I say this is going to be your fighter of the night, but I do firmly believe there are 2 people we can give fighter of the night to tonight. There's literally only 2 guys. And you let me know if you agree, because if you do agree, we can do this a little bit different. If you don't agree, I will let you go on your tangent by all means. You have Alexander Volkanovski and you have Jalin Turner, excuse me. How disrespectful of me. Jalin Turner, the tarantula, and Alexander Volkanovski. Those are the only 2 guys that deserve fighter of the night here. Alex Paeta, you did what you needed to do, but these are the 2 guys who had stand-up performances. Which one gets the nod in your eyes?
Me, Volkanovski, brother.
Easy.
Anytime, I always have to admit when I'm wrong, and I went with the bad choice on that one. And the mental game, the fight style, Volkanovski, I can go on for hours on how impressed and how durable and all this stuff. So I'll leave it short, man. Volkanovski.
Yeah, and it's simple as that. And I have to agree with you. I have to double down and say Alexander Volkanovski is the champion, whether you want him to be or not. That honestly has no peer in his division right now. Now, for Israel Adesanya, you got Alex Paeta. Ooh, interesting, right? In the heavyweights, Ngannou, who is his peer? Well, he still got Stipe. Let's not forget about him. John Jones, light heavyweight. That one's going all over the place. Name me one person, one champion right now, aside from Kamaru Usman, who more or less has no equal. And I think you can. I think literally that's it. Clearly, Valentina Shevchenko, even though she is my GOAT, she's the best to do it right now. She had some troubles against Santos. I don't think she really has a peer either. But he's in that class, right? So that's basically what I'm saying. Alexander Volkanovski, heart, grit, determination, mental tenacity, mental fortitude, the ability to be booed at all times and still treat it like a home game. You're the champ, brother, and you're the fighter of the night, hands down. You didn't win just the championship, but the coveted fighter of the night from the Bloody Water podcast. What are we talking about, brother? And boom, just like that, AJ, that was your fighter of the night. But I have one last thing that I want to get to, my man, and this is simply just the word on the street. It's the last little thing that I want to talk about tonight, and this is just interesting because I know MMA is an interesting game, and when it comes down to sponsorship and when it comes down to money, I think they're a little shameless in the way that they'll just say, like, if it gives us more money, I really don't give a shit. So you remember the Black Azilians, right? Kamaru Usman's old camp, right? Well, the Black Azilians, they ended up getting, converted to Sanford MMA. And I don't know if you know about Sanford MMA. Sanford, that name is actually like a medical company or some shit like that. You know what I mean? It's not just like I picked Sanford MMA, boom. And that's how they got that super gym out there in South Florida. Well, Sanford MMA has now made a rebrand, AJ. More financial power. Top Gym Sanford MMA has been rebranded to Kill Cliff FC. So, brother, they got the Joe Rogan rub or what? I don't know what's going on, man. But Kill Cliff FC now has more than 80 professional fighters, including Robbie Lawler, Michael Chandler, Gilbert Burns, and Logan Storley, former one champion, Ong La Nesang, I butchered that, Vicente Luque, Shavkat Rakhmonov. I actually didn't know Shavkat Rakhmonov was under Kill Cliff right now. But Henry Hooft and Greg Jones, man, they basically, said, all right, this is the switch that we're going to have to make. It's going to put a lot more money in the fighters' pockets, give them more resources, all that good stuff. Give me your take on the situation. Shameless name change right here, Kill Cliff FC. But at the end of the day, listen, top-notch gym. This is basically American Top Team and Kill Cliff FC now. It just does not roll off the tongue well. But what do you think of it?
It doesn't roll off the tongue. It is shameless, but I am all here for it, especially as a coach who's looking to get his own gym. Shit, man, somebody wants to throw their name and pay for it? Fuck yeah, all day long. I don't give a shit. I'm still training these people all day. Kill Cliff FC. Hey, what is it? KCFC. I think that's a little bit better for him, but that's it. It's not a very fluid way to say, like, he's training out of Kill Cliff. Like, that's going to be maybe, but we'll see. Hey, man, if the money's there, I say fair play. And
this is what the game is about, man. This is a bunch of independent contractors trying to get as much money as possible, fund their careers. Kill Cliff FC it is. So that is your word on the street, folks. And then lastly, AJ, let me pull this down. Let me actually get a little bit of a preview because I actually have it here now, brother. And let me see. I'm gonna do it real fast. So I'm gonna pull this up while we're kind of talking about this. We have a fun card on our hands next week, brother, and I think that this is gonna be a fun card. Not only just because you have two amazing kickboxers that are gonna be getting after it, but you also have something a little bit different right here, AJ. And you have a poster that I think is worth noting. And I say that because this might be the worst poster I've ever seen in my entire life, AJ. I'm not gonna sit here and lie to you. So I'm gonna pull it up real fast. It's gonna be a quick preview for our. There we go. Look at that, brother. Am I looking at, is this, what's homeboy? No longer with us, recently deceased, had the little electricity thunder on his eyeball, red hair, David Bowie. Where does that dude, was he in a band or something? Forgive me, people are going to roast me in the comments. David Bowie, I know he's a popular guy or whatnot, but this gives me those vibes or something like that, man. Dos Anjos versus Rafael Fiziev, arguably one of the worst posters ever, but I promise you this main event is going to be banging, so don't let the poster deter you. What do you make?
Yeah. My God, Derick. Yeah, this is an interesting poster, but you're right. The fight is gonna provide. So don't stress the poster. Sometimes the worst ones we see end up being the best fight nights. They got Fiziev looking like an elf, bro. Why? Like a
gremlin, brother, like a gremlin or something. But you got big names fighting next weekend. You got Jamie Malaki, Michael Johnson, Saeed Nurmagomedov, Armin Petrosian. You have, Nina Nunez, Cynthia Calvillo. You have Antonina Shevchenko, Trayshawn Gord. That's going to be a fun one right there. Kennedy and Chekwu. You know that's a crowd favorite. Said Jokub Kakramanov. Don't forget about that, dude. And lastly, Ronnie Lawrence, man. So I'm just going to leave it at that. We have some fun fights next week to talk about. Once again, we are your premier source for wagering, for analysis, for recap, for breaking down the entire fight game, for combat sports in a nutshell. AJ, it was a fun week this week over at International Fight Week, man. Luckily, because I live in the area, I was able to just slide on down, man. Got to go take a picture with the champ, Carla Esparza. Very interesting, man. She's so tiny in person. It's kind of crazy that she just manhandles people at her, like, dainty 5'1" size, man. But shoulders jacked, wide, the whole nine. It was fun, bro. It was fun seeing everybody and all that stuff, man. You excited for next week?
Excited for next week, Derick. Yeah, man. I mean, I've been waiting for the RDA Fiziev fight for what, 2-3 months now since they first announced it. This is going to be a very, very fun fight, and the card sounds stacked too, man. You get a lot of people on there. The Tresean Gore, like you said, that's a big one. There's a lot of fights going to be happening that are very exciting. Going to see a lot of knockouts next week, hopefully, as well.
You already know what time it is, folks. So hit us up on all of your social media platforms. But what's most importantly is you head over to our YouTube, drop a like, subscribe, get us to 400 subscribers at least, and then let's keep it pushing to 500. We set the goal. Now we just got to hit it. All right, AJ. If that's it for us, brother, I think that kind of is. I think we hit every nail on the head right there. We will see you on Friday for the preview show, Rafael Fiziev versus RDA. You know what time it is. Until next time, folks. Peace.